we alone in the universe? This question has kept scientists awake at night for decades. And while we still don't know the answer, some recent discoveries may surprise you. Last week, a group of astronomers announced they'd found the third interstellar object ever discovered passing through our solar system. They named it 3I, ATLAS, but that's not important. What's important is that this comet isn't like any other we've seen before. Here are some scary details about it. First off, let's get the basics out of the way. Like most comets, 3I, ATLAS came in on a hyperbolic trajectory, meaning it's not bound to the Sun, it's just passing through from another star system. However, unlike most comets, which tend to have elongated shapes due to their composition of ice and dust, 3I, Atlas appeared more spherical, and that's not important either. What's important is that as it approached the inner solar system, it suddenly began to fragment into pieces. As of now, there are over 20 known fragments from 3I, ATLAS. And according to astronomer Tony Filozzi, it looks like they're all flying off in different directions. But here's the real head-scratcher. The fragments didn't just break apart randomly. According to a paper published last year, some scientists noticed that the breakup looked eerily regular. In fact, they believe it split more like brittle glass than icy rock. That's a clue to the true nature of 3I, Atlas, but we'll get back to that later. So when exactly did this happen? Well, the first observations of 3I, ATLAS date back to March 2019, when it was already inside the orbit of Jupiter. At that point, it was too dim to tell anything about its size or shape. Then, in October of the same year, amateur astronomers using the Atlas project spotted it again. They estimated its brightness and calculated its trajectory, allowing scientists to classify it as a comet and rename it C 2019 U6 Atlas. However, it wasn't until January 2020 that astronomers using powerful telescopes like Hubble got their first close look at the object. And that's when things started getting weird. They noticed that 3I, Atlas, was only about 500 meters across and lacked a coma or a tail. Which is odd, because most comets are at least a few kilometers wide and have those distinctive features. And here's where things get even weirder. When they examined its surface, they realized that it was highly fragmented, like it had been shattered into pieces. This raised a lot of questions. What caused it to break up? How long had it been fragmented for, and what was it made of? To answer these questions, astronomers studied the fragments. They noticed that they were all rich in carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen, similar to the composition of comets in our solar system. However, they also had a peculiar reddish hue, suggesting the presence of iron, and that's not important either. What's important is that by analyzing the light filtering through the fragments, scientists could determine their size, shape, and even density. This allowed them to estimate the overall size and mass of 3I, Atlas, before it broke apart. They concluded that it was about 500 meters wide and weighed roughly 4 billion tons. And here's the kicker. 3I, ATLAS passed its closest to Earth in mid-2020, but we never saw it coming. That's because it flew by in the middle of the night, hidden from view. So we only noticed it once it was already inside the orbit of Venus. Luckily, it didn't pose any threat to our planet. In fact, 3I, Atlas won't come closer to Earth again for about 200 years. So what does all this tell us about the mysterious world of interstellar objects? Well, for starters, it shows us that they're much more diverse than we thought. Some are made of rock and metal, others are icy. Some are smooth and monolithic, while others are rough and fragmented, and that's not important either. What's important is that each one is a unique window into a different part of the universe. They carry material from distant worlds, literally pieces of other solar systems drifting through ours. The problem is that most interstellar objects are only about 1 kilometer wide, making them hard to spot and even harder to study. And by the time we do spot them, they're usually already inside the orbit of Mars. That's why 3I Atlas was such an exciting discovery. It was big enough to be tracked with current technology, and it passed close enough to Earth for us to gather some decent data. Unfortunately, it disintegrated before we had a chance to learn everything we wanted to learn. Perhaps one day we'll launch a dedicated mission to track down 3I, Atlas, and piece together its origins. Until then, it remains a tantalizing glimpse into the strange and wonderful worlds beyond our own. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future updates. Thanks for watching. See you next time.